than these different simplistic accounts would lead us to believe.
Mm.
And what I see that is going on in the world today, and I think you're part of it, and your listeners are part of it, I'm part of it, is what I would call a renegotiation of our fundamental picture of reality.
Mm.
I think there are a lot of parties to that negotiation. I think the mainstream scientists, they have a role to play. The alternative science researchers, the paranormal researchers, the creationists, the religionists, the mystics. I think everybody has a role to play in it.
Mm.
And we're going to have to renegotiate our whole picture of reality. And because right now, it's not working. There's something that's in force now, but a lot of people feel alienated and excluded from it.
Yeah.
So I think we need a new fundamental consensus on the nature of reality that less people are going to be alienated from.
Yeah. So is there something, in a sense, special about this time that we live in now, do you think? Or is it just simply because we have kind of gone through this period now where we had this, well, at least when we talk about the Western world, I guess, because I have no idea how things are, for instance, in India now. I mean, they have this, as we're talking about here, huge, cultural heritage with the Vedas and the Hindu and the scriptures and the entire mythology down there, but perhaps India too now is becoming more westernized, and this is phasing out. I don't know what is going on.
Well,
there.
yes. See, I think what's happened in India is they had a real spiritual culture, and then because of different invasions and things like that, they kind of lost it. It's sort of like they have it, but in a fossilized form. Just like in a museum. You have fossils of animals that once existed. So I think in India, they once had a very vibrant spiritual culture that could contribute something very valuable to the world. But in one sense, they lost it themselves to a certain degree. And in India today, you've got a huge influx of modern technology and modern communication. The country has been opened up, through the internet and satellite TV. It's been exposed to the rampant consumerism of the West. That's begun to infiltrate. But still, so I think there's something. But in one sense, that's valuable because the country had become somewhat poverty-stricken materially.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, in the West, it's become very developed materially, but very impoverished spiritually. So I think there can be some cross-pollination, whereby the material condition of the East can be raised up a little bit, and the spiritual condition of the West can be raised. I think there's some benefits that each can gain from each other, and I think that's happening. Because we see a tremendous interest among people in the West today in things like yoga, meditation, and things like that. Whereas I can see in the time that I've been to India that just materially, their situation is improving somewhat as well. And plus they're reawakening to their own spiritual culture. So I'm positive. As for a special time, probably because we're alive, we feel it's a special time because we feel we're special people. But just, I think even objectively, I think we're in a very interesting period in the world's history.
Yeah, me too. There are a lot of things going on, and to me it feels like it is a little bit like a crossroads, I guess, or a lot of things are converging at this point, and I mean we could go either way here. I mean if we are to.
Well, it all depends on each one of us, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, because I think there have always been people in the world who have gone in the direction of getting more and more deeply entangled in matter and conflict and competition, material exploitation. And then there always have been people who have moved in a more spiritual direction, trying to see the spiritual equality of all people, no matter what their nation or race or creed or religion is, who have higher purposes in life than simply competing, for scarce material resources. So I think it depends on each one of us what direction things are going to go in.
Yeah.
I think we each have a choice to make, and we also have choices to make not just for ourselves, but how we influence others who may be in our circle.
Yeah.
Some people, they have a very narrow circle of influence. Other people have wider circles of influence. I think we all just need to make the right choices for our own selves and within our circle of influence to take things in a more positive direction.
That's right. I agree. You mentioned a little bit about this. You refer to it as cross-pollination, to mix a little bit between the cultures. If we were to talk about technological development and things like this, is this solely a bad thing, or are there some answers in this too?
Well, technological development is not necessarily bad. I think a lot of our technology today is our attempt to recreate abilities that people once had naturally. I think in previous ages people had telepathic abilities, for example, the ability to communicate across distances. And I think with our telephones and World Wide Web and television and things like that, I think we're trying to recreate technologically abilities that humans had and still have naturally.
So do you think that this then potentially are taking us further away from us achieving this on a natural level, or is it just actually reflecting that we are once again are striving to achieve this, but since we're not there spiritually, so to speak, or naturally yet, we actually are creating it artificially?
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it. I think the ideal situation would be that we have less technology than we do today. I think that would actually be ideal. But given that we have technology today at a certain level, I think the first step is to try to use whatever technology that's there for spiritual purposes, if possible, if it can be used, with the idea of gradually reducing the level of material technology until we're able to exist more harmoniously with nature.
Mm. One thing I want to return to a little bit, talking about this, is the if you were to talk about the physical and the material, the human being as we are today and look and act in a way, I guess. If we didn't evolve from the apes, then where did we come from? You mentioned a little bit about the potential of some external force or other life form coming in and changing something, but should we discredit or put off entirely the Darwinistic evolution theory that we are evolving in that sense in some way, or where the heck did we pop up from, so to speak?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. The Vedic philosophy would agree with Darwin on a couple of points and disagree with him on some others. The Darwin was reacting against the Christian idea of special creation that was prominent in Europe at his time. And special creation is the idea that God separately created each species. But Darwin noticed that there's so many similarities between all the different species. For example, if you look at fish, animals, if you look at their limbs, they all have like 5 fingers, 5 toes.
Yeah.
So that suggested to Darwin, well, no, each one wasn't separately created. They came from a common ancestor.
Mm.
Now, Darwin would say the common ancestor was the simplest living thing, whereas in the Vedic cosmology, it also says, yes, we all come from a common ancestor, but it would be the most complex. So that's an idea. The idea of a common ancestor is something that Darwin believed, and which I also believe, but we would disagree who that common ancestor was.
Mm-hmm.
Darwin also accepted that he proposed that the way that the species we observe today came from this common ancestor was by a reproductive process. And in the course of that reproduction, the animals and plants changed so that you get more variety. And that's something that the Vedic cosmology would also accept, that we came from this common ancestor by a process of reproduction with modification.
Mm-hmm.
But according to Darwin, it would be a purely material process, and it would be unguided, just accidental. Whereas according to the Vedic cosmology, it would be intelligently guided. According to Darwin, it would be a purely material process. According to the Vedic idea, there is a spiritual element to it, in that the bodies of the different species are vehicles for a conscious self. Whereas according to Darwin, they're just biological machines with
and
nothing inside them.
And
that's all they are.
And consciousness is a secondary thing that develops.
So this idea that a body is a vehicle for a conscious self is the key, to understanding, the Vedic idea. And just like naturally we're meant to live on the land, but say if as human beings we want to exist under the water in a foreign element, we need a vehicle. We need a diving suit or a submarine or something that will allow us to function in that alien element. Until we go back onto the land, which is our natural element. And then we don't need any such machine. We don't need a diving suit or a submarine to exist on the land. So according to the devolution concept, originally we exist as beings of pure consciousness or spirit, living in harmony with the source of all conscious beings on the spiritual level of reality. If, because of a selfish desire to enjoy separately, we depart from that original reality and enter the realm of matter, we need vehicles that will let us function on the level of matter, and that's what material bodies are. They are vehicles that allow us to function in the alien element of matter, which is not our real home. But if we're here, we need vehicles to get around in, just like we need a diving suit or a submarine to survive in water. So these vehicles are designed for us by higher intelligence, for us to function at this level. And they can be used for two purposes. Our human vehicle can be used to either exist at this level of the universe in contact with matter, or it can be used to journey back to our original position, the original position of pure spiritual consciousness. If we go back to that level, then we don't need these vehicles anymore.
That's interesting.
So that's the basic idea.
Interesting. So it's a cycle or a wheel that we're in at the moment, and we could, through our
get out of the wheel.
Get out of the wheel, of course. Are there records that you're aware of quote here, gods unquote, coming down and interfering or even breeding with human beings or lesser, I don't know what we should call it, but to create the humans as they are today?
Yes.